Hello, so our presentation is on major depressive disorder and schizophrenia.
We found a case study explaining the onset of schizophrenia for a 14-year-old boy who at the time was in 6th grade. Since 3rd grade, he experiences academic decline within his schooling. Hallucinations were occurring for about 2 years. Since he was born, he was exposed to aggressive behavior from his father. He also experienced his parents' divorce and changing his home to live with his grandparents. Following this change of scenery of his home and school, his irritability, aggression, and auditory hallucinations greatly progressed. Since the onset of schizophrenia, his academics were declining. Environmental factors sped up his side effects. In addition, he stopped taking care of himself, such as showering. This case study shows how environmental factors have a great significance in individual experiences with schizophrenia, such as this individual whose symptoms greatly progressed based on environmental change.
Schizophrenia impacts an individual's ability to think, behave, and feel, and symptoms of schizophrenia include delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized speech and behavior. And major depressive disorder is persistent with sadness and loss of interest. There's a positive correlation between chronic stress and the sympathetic nervous system. And major depressive disorder is partially caused by chemical imbalances because there is a decrease in acetylcholine levels. We decided to investigate the myth that mental illness is solely caused by chemical imbalances in the brain. We chose this topic because it is a common misconception and we wanted to gain a better understanding of what's actually happening. This topic is important because mental illness impacts many people daily and it can take many different forms. Since this myth is widely known, the actual causes of mental illness are being overlooked. We decided to focus on major depressive disorder and schizophrenia because they are very different types of mental illnesses, but they're still impacted by the same factors.
These are some causes of mental illness. Chemical imbalances are not the sole cause for mental illness. Environmental factors such as mercury in food or lead in paint can cause the mind to function differently and start to form mental health issues. This is one demonstration of how vital it is to discover all of the causes of mental illnesses. These examples demonstrate how the brain can be impacted by a variety of environmental factors and may not solely be a chemical imbalance in the brain.
And these are some of the environmental factors that cause major depressive disorder and schizophrenia.
For major depressive disorder, it can be caused by stressful life events, childhood adversity, adverse environmental stimuli, and social isolation. A lot of the environmental factors for MDD are caused by social interactions and these type of behaviors.
And then for schizophrenia, some of the environmental factors include prenatal infections, hypoxia, nutritional deprivation, psychosocial stress, urban living, and the use of cannabis. And a lot of the environmental factors for schizophrenia are really impacting the neurological development of individuals.
This is the role that genetics and heritability play in major depressive disorder and schizophrenia. For MDD, inheriting it is partially inherited, and it has a predictable inheritance pattern. It also has increased risk for first-degree relatives. This means that inheriting MDD is possible, and it does happen, but it can also happen due to the social interactions as explained in the environmental factors slide.
And then for schizophrenia, there's a high heritability estimate. It's not completely proven, but there's a very high correlation with inheritability. And then there's several genes associated with schizophrenia, which would be like the C4 gene, the GRIN2A, and the GRIA3. Those are all really associated with schizophrenia. And then some of the impacts of these genes would be neurodevelopment, neuroplasticity, immunology, and neuroendocrinology. And so all of these are impacted by the genetic factors of schizophrenia. And then these are the references that we used. Thank you.